Hello, I'm the Pageant Nerd. Thanks for stopping by. With pageant season winding down for 2024, it's time to pause and reflect on the momentous winners, the controversial exclusions, the drama that erupted, the tears that were shed, the history that was written, and the stories that dominated our online discussions, debates, and a fair share of trolling. For it cannot be denied that these days the pageant world, the appreciation of it and commentary around it, is just as much about the politics, the management issues, the alleged favouritism of certain countries, ignoring of others, belittling of one pageant in defence of another, as it is about celebrating the thrill of competition, the iconic moments, the inspiring stories and glorious victories. For those of you who've questioned why I've returned in this current environment when I previously said it was the main reason for me going away, let me state for the record that I'm back because I've accepted this to be, in a community that I love participating in and did not want to be apart from, and that's being apart from you, my fabulous viewers. And while I'm hoping I can continue to play a small role in helping the world of pageantry, and in particular pageant fandom, be a more respectful, kind, supportive and fact-based place, I know that pageantry as an industry will survive, thrive, or maybe take a dive in spite of or because of its imperfections. Before I get into today's video, just a quick reminder that if you do enjoy it and my other videos, hitting the thumbs up, subscribe, and super thanks are all hugely appreciated. But without further ado, here's my 2024 World of Pageantry Year in Review. Let's go. We were blessed to have all the major international competitions staged in the calendar year 2024, although the Miss World held this past March was officially its delayed 2023 edition, and their next staging will be the 2025 one. As you know, we've got the Alphas and the Big Four as commonly used groupings of the most popular and highly regarded pageants. Grand Slams, Big Six are also mentioned, but here, in chronological order, are 10 of the biggest women's pageants staged in 2024 and who took the titles. Miss World 2023 was originally scheduled for May of that year in the United Arab Emirates. It was then moved to Delhi, India in December, but local elections forced a second delay, eventually being held in Mumbai in March 2024, albeit still officially as Miss World 2023, the second time India has hosted the competition. Also happening for the second time was a Czech woman wearing the blue crown. Kristina Pliskova, following in the footsteps of her compatriot Tatiana Kurhachova, Miss World 2006. Pliskova also succeeded a statuesque, blonde, equally photogenic Polish woman, Miss World 2021, Karolina Bielawska, both of whom have been impressive and glamorous ambassadors for the Miss World brand. In July, Indonesia became the 14th different nation to wear the Poland-based Miss Supranational crown after its 15th edition, which was also notable for Poland's first ever failure to place. Harashta Haifazara was the 9th Indonesian to place at Miss Supranational, breaking through for her country's first title after 4 runner-up results. She was the first winner of Putri Indonesia to be sent to Miss Supranational after the pageant lost its Miss Universe license. Another pageant, another continent, but the same country won. After its supranational triumph, Indonesia swept the inaugural Miss Cosmo 3 months later in Vietnam, a spectacular pageant hosted in Ho Chi Minh City. For a brand new global competition, Miss Cosmo boasted a well-credentialed judging panel, which included Miss Universe 2021, Harnaz Sandhu, 2 former Miss Universe Vietnams, and none other than longtime Miss Universe organisation president, Paula Shugart. In a year which saw most of the big international women's titles won by Asian or European countries, Colombia had a rare moment of joy for the Americas, taking the minor Miss Globe crown for the first time. The Miss Globe pageant has had a few iterations, with and without the at the start of its name, and also a version called Miss Globe International. The pageant had its beginnings in Turkey, but is now regularly staged in Albania, hosted brilliantly in 2024 by my friend and great all-round guy, Luis Porteles. Hi Luis, if you're watching this. It's a pageant known for its extra on-stage productions and its drama off-stage. But in the end, Miss Grand International consistently picks high-quality winners to wear its main crown. 2024 was no exception, with the spectacular Rachel Gupta securing India's first title in the Thai-owned competition. While there was controversy over MGI's withdrawal from Cambodia for the pageant's early activities, a major tantrum from a runner-up, and disgruntled national directors giving up their licenses, the finals night show was arguably the best staged in international pageantry in 2024. More on all this later. After 3 previous first runner-up finishes, Australia broke through for its first Miss Earth title thanks to Jessica Lane, who edged out fellow elemental queens Iceland, USA and Peru. In doing so, Australia became the 6th nation to have won at least one title at each of the Big Four, alongside Miss World, Universe and International. Already in the Big Four club were Venezuela, USA, Philippines, Puerto Rico and Brazil. 22-year-old Jessica is an environmental activist from Melbourne who's studying journalism and creative writing at a university in Queensland. For a pageant that's been consistently based in Japan since the 1960s, Miss International didn't crown an East Asian or Southeast Asian country other than the Philippines until 2012. But since then we've seen Japan, Indonesia, Thailand and now Vietnam join 6-time title holder the Philippines in the winner's circle. Huyen Thi Thanh Thuy actually won the 2022 edition of Miss Vietnam, a pageant that's only held every second year. The 3 previous Miss Vietnams competed in Miss World, but she was the first one sent to Miss International. For the first time in 21 years, we had consecutive countries winning their first Miss Universe titles. After Nicaragua's victory in 2023, Denmark broke through in its 55th appearance, the most attempts for any country in winning its first Miss Universe. 3 days after her 21st birthday, Victoria Kjartalvig, a Miss Grand International crossover from 2022, became the first blonde winner in 20 years, the first European Miss Universe in 8 years, and the youngest queen in 12 years, since the woman who co-hosted the 73rd edition in Mexico City, Olivia Culpo. In Egypt earlier this month, Puerto Rico claimed its 5th Miss Intercontinental crown thanks to Maria Cepero. Puerto Rico is now tied with Venezuela and the USA for the most Miss Intercontinental titles, with Maria having edged Venezuela into 2nd place in the 2024 pageant. Miss Intercontinental has been held 52 times since 1971, although it remains a minor competition in global pageantry with a fluctuating entry list and modest, some would say, substandard production. And just before Christmas, the 2nd Miss Charm was held in Vietnam, with 36 entrants competing, slightly down on last year's debut and partly affected by the pageant's rescheduling and relocation, originally meant to be held in the United States in August. Malaysia's Rashmita Rasindran took the title, capping an incredible year for the Southeast Asian nation. More on Malaysia later. The clean sweep of pageants held this year even extended to the male competitions, and in particular, the crowning of a Mr. World for the first time since 2019. And looking at the winners of the bigger international male pageants in 2024, you'll see a number of powerhouse nations that regularly rule the roost in these and women's competitions. Thailand, South Africa, Venezuela, Philippines, and Puerto Rico. And most recently, we had Nigeria put the cherry on top of its wonderful year in pageantry by taking the Mr. International title. More on Nigeria later on in this video. In one of the most dramatic examples of sore losing in recent memory, Miss Grand International endured the spectacle of seeing its delegate from Myanmar along with her national director, utterly disgusted at being crowned second runner-up. Miss Grand International understandably revoked the third place position in the wake of that meltdown. Drama had followed Tae Soo Nyen throughout the competition, and while she's undoubtedly a spectacularly beautiful woman, she is indeed barely a woman at 18 years of age. Her speaking abilities were sadly inferior to those of first runner-up CJ Opiaza of the Philippines, and eventual winner Rachel Gupta, who secured India's first ever Miss Grand International title after previous second and first runners-up finishes. During Miss Grand Philippines' homecoming some weeks later, MGI owner Papa Nawat provided more context to the result and expressing his surprise at the reaction, adding that Miss Grand Myanmar was largely incapable of looking after herself and instead had a team around her doing her makeup and other daily tasks, something that was incompatible with the role of Miss Grand International. Myanmar's franchise holder parted ways with MGI and then proceeded to take up the Miss World license in his country. Assuming he'll groom Tae Soo Nyen for Miss World, he's hoping he allows his protege to mature before sending her to the alpha pageant that values philanthropy, eloquence, and maturity above all else. This time last year, I highlighted some of the countries that compiled an impressive string of results across multiple pageants, but it was done a little informally. This year, I wanted to step it up a notch and document how some of the powerhouse nations performed at the 10 women's pageants I mentioned earlier, and also some of the less heralded countries that had a great year. So let's check out some pageant report cards, shall we? The USA had top 5 finishes at Supranational, Cosmo, and Earth, but failed to place at World, Universe, International, and Grand. The last time the USA failed to place at Miss Universe in 2010, they won Miss World. But the last time the USA went unplaced at both alpha pageants held in the same calendar year was all the way back in 1976. Mind you, this year is somewhat unusual in that Miss World, held in March, was the 2023 edition. Likewise for fellow powerhouse Venezuela, which had 3 top 5 finishes as well at International, Universe, and Intercontinental, but failed to place at World, Earth, Grand, Supranational, and the inaugural Miss Cosmo. Colombia won the Miss Globe, finished top 6 at Charm, and had first cut placements at Grand and Intercontinental, but failed to make the semis at any of the big 4 as well as Supra. The Philippines also had 3 top 5 finishes across these 10 competitions. Top 3s in fact at Globe and Intercontinental, and their third first runner-up at Grand. They did, however, fail to place at World at International. The first time since 2010, the Philippines went unplaced at 2 Big 4 pageants in the same calendar year. Following a similar script, Thailand also had a trio of top 5s, first runners-up at Cosmo and Globe and third runner-up at Universe, but like the USA, Colombia and Philippines, non-placements at World and International. A banner year for Indonesia, winning its first Miss Supranational and the first Miss Cosmo, along with a 4th runner-up at International, 5th runner-up at Grand, and top 6 at Charm. Non-placements, however, at Earth and Universe. Czech Republic was arguably the best performing European nation, taking its second Miss World title along with a second runner-up at Supra and top 8 at International. Peru had a consistent season, placing at 3 of the big 4, plus Supra, a top 5 at Cosmo, and top 10 at Grand. In addition to its first ever Miss Grand International title, India placed at both alphas, a top 8 at World and top 30 at Universe, plus top 10 at Charm and top 12 at Supranational. Brazil had top 5s at Grand and Supra, top 8 at World, but went unplaced at Earth, International and Universe. Next up is arguably the most improved country of 2024. Malaysia placed at both alphas in the same calendar year for the very first time, including its first Miss Universe placement in 54 years and only second overall. In the past few days, Malaysia captured the Miss Charm crown, the second year in a row it had won an international title, having taken the Miss Globe last year. And Nigeria had an outstanding pageant season, placing at all of the Big Four held in 2024, plus Supra and Charm, its year highlighted by a best ever Miss Universe result, first runner-up, and in men's pageantry, the Mr. International title I mentioned just before, and second runner-up at Mr. Global. I don't know about you, but I feel like we're approaching somewhat of a tipping point as to whether or not the more established pageants will continue to remain popular and relevant in the face of newer, fresher, more dynamic competitions coming up. In terms of pure spectacle, the newer pageants, including one making its debut this year, upstage their much more established rivals in 2024. To be clear, right here, right now, I'm only talking about the visual spectacle, the entertainment value, show production, staging, lighting, energy, the general excitement of watching the pageant finals night, either in person or on television. Miss Earth's production efforts are justifiably focused on showcasing the environmental work done by its contestants, and less so on the elaborateness of its on-stage production. Likewise, Miss World, which has an equally strong focus on philanthropy through its Beauty with a Purpose project. Though it has to be said, the pageant held in India in March was of a very high production standard. Meanwhile, Miss International just keeps doing its thing. But it was Miss Universe that took the title of the most underwhelming Big Four pageant of 2024, having hosted a top-notch 72nd edition in El Salvador in 2023. Despite having a record 125 delegates, or arguably because of it, the preliminary competition drastically trimmed back the presence of evening gowns and the production quality of the finals night, despite a huge stage and being held in one of the biggest venues ever to host Miss Universe, was a major letdown from last year, and also 2018 in Bangkok, 2016 in Manila, and so forth. The Thai and Vietnamese-owned Miss Grand International and Miss Cosmo respectively dazzled us with incredible staging, entertainment, choreography, TV camera work, audio, lighting, and more. I specifically call out choreography, as this is something Miss Universe and even Miss Earth have done well in the past. But the opening number from Miss Grand International this year was, in my opinion, one of the best in many years in any pageant. Another huge tick in Miss Grand's column compared to, say, Miss Universe is the amount of time given to each and every delegate. A full name and country introduction and catwalk moment versus merely shouting out your country. No comparison at all, really. That's arguably a huge advantage of being broadcast on YouTube over a cable or free-to-air TV network. But it's not an excuse for the mere seconds each queen was given in the spotlight during Miss Universe 2024. As I just mentioned, a major thing holding back the younger pageants is the organisational drama. But hopefully, once the back-end business side sorts itself out, these up-and-coming competitions can become legitimate equals to the Big Four, if not in longevity, but entertainment value and impact. Okay, so here's where things get pretty nerdy and stat-heavy. You've been warned. By the end of 2024, a total of 234 women had won a Big Four title, those being Miss World, Universe, International, and Earth combined, including dethroned queens and those who replaced them. That amount swells to 262 when including Supranational and Grand. A total of 65 different nations have won at least one Big Four title, and 69 nations across the Big Six. Not surprisingly, Venezuela leads both leaderboards, having won 24 Big Four titles and 25 Big Six. As I mentioned earlier, Australia becomes the sixth nation to sweep the Big Four. Again, here's the breakdown of titles won by all six. To date, only Venezuela has won multiple titles at each of the Big Four pageants. Who'll be next? The same nations, plus India, are the only ones to have won at least one title at 5 of the Big Six, with Puerto Rico the only one to have swept all 6 crowns. And here are the leaderboards for each of the Big Four pageants individually. Looking at the alphas, there have been 37 different nations that have won Miss World, and with Denmark's Miss Universe victory, there are now 36 winning nations in that pageant. 22 nations, here in yellow, have won both alpha titles at least once. Here are some super random bits of trivia. This year, the Czech Republic became the 7th nation to win multiple Miss World titles without having won Miss Universe, the others being the United Kingdom, Jamaica, Iceland, Austria, China, and Poland. Conversely, Canada, Colombia, Japan, and Thailand are the 4 countries with multiple Miss Universes, but no Miss Worlds. Back on the Czech Republic, and while Kristina Piszkova succeeded a Polish woman, Karolina Bielawska, for the Miss World title, her compatriot Tatiana Kurharova was crowned Miss World 2006 in Karolina's home country of Poland, when Karolina was just 7 years old. One thing I've been meaning to mention for a while is that even though Miss World started a year earlier than its fellow alpha pageant, Miss Universe has now hosted 2 more editions of its competition, 73 to 71, as Miss World skipped a couple due to COVID, and officially there won't be a 2024 edition for the reasons I mentioned earlier, even though the 2023 edition was held in the 2024 calendar year. It's becoming more and more common for pageants themselves to come under fire by the fandom, especially when results do not meet expectations. The newer pageants in particular are regularly labelled cooking shows, or even deemed worthy of boycotting, even though the same fans had been eagerly following said pageant, until the very moment things didn't go their way. It's got to the point that the sign your pageant isn't popular these days isn't about the number of people criticising you, it's whether people are talking about you at all. Over the multiple decades I followed pageants, and no doubt brought on by the advent and now great influence of social media, the practice of criticising pageants and their results has gone from virtually unheard of to now expected on a regular basis. It's not to say that some of the criticism of pageants and pageant organisations isn't justified. The actions of pageant owners, national directors, and on occasion, contestants themselves do warrant constructive feedback, with the hope that there are people in various circles of influence to change or improve behaviours to protect the brands of individuals and national or even global organisations. Clearly there are some critical issues going on right now. National directors in more than one pageant system, and in the case of Miss USA, even state directors, expressing their frustrations for a number of reasons, and in some instances giving up their franchises as a last resort. We've got global pageant owners arguably acting against the best interests of their delegates and giving nations and even continents reasons to believe their chances of winning are slim to none based on trivial things like hair and eye colour. Transition periods for established pageants never go perfectly, and newer competitions will invariably make some errors as they develop. But as pageant fans, our role is not to cheer only for the things we love, to denigrate everything else, and to fan the flames of issues that in many instances aren't real issues at all. Our role should be to keep pageantry a healthy, vibrant, positive, impactful environment. and to provide objective, constructive feedback when called for. For the sake of contestants who devote so much energy and display so much bravery and sometimes vulnerability to be in the spotlight. For the global, national and regional directors and pageant organisers, trainers and coaches that genuinely care about the delegates that choose to be a part of their system. But it's also for the people and companies who invest money as sponsors, business partners and broadcasters. For pageants are a business after all. At the end of the day, I want pageantry to thrive, or at the very least, survive. So please don't mistake my viewpoint as one that agrees with everything that's going on right now. Far from it. Rather one that won't be cheering on its demise. There's a difference there. I'm hoping I can will some changes into being, and hopefully you can too. With all the heavy discussion and facts and figures in this video, I wanted to end on a lighter note and pay tribute to one of, if not the most charismatic queens that competed this year. That being Miss Grand France, who showed a ton of humour, fierceness, pride in being different, and all-round setting a great example of just doing you. I thought that was a good note to end on in this my 2024 year in review. Wishing you all a happy festive season and every success in 2025. I'm the Pageant Nerd. I'll be back again very soon, but it's bye for now.